Welcome to The Outlet, an OTG production.
What's up, NBA fans? Welcome to another edition of The Outlet. With me, as always, Parth.
What's going on, Nick?
Same old Parth, ready to get into these rankings. And today at number 22, the Brooklyn Nets. That's my team, but before we talk about that, here's a clip from last season.
Great job keeping that ball alive to yourself, though. You saw his length go to work.
Johnson swings it. Bogdanovich is there. Bogdanovich again.
So who gets that assist?
I don't know, either Brook Lopez's head or Joe Johnson. That's a tough one.
It describes the Nets perfectly, how they accidentally just bumped into the playoffs last season.
Yeah, this sounds just like the Nets. They don't do anything right, and they still end up in the playoffs. But let's talk about this ranking. You think it's fair?
I do think it's a fair ranking for the Nets. What do you think? I know these are your rankings, and the Brooklyn Nets are your team, so why do you have them ranked so low?
I have them so low. I think there's a lot of unknowns going to the season. They have a lot of young guys. Jarrett Jack at point guard, Brook Lopez's health. And they just lost Aaron Williams, even though he didn't play like he should have for his contract. He still ran the offense. So they have some question marks, but they do have some potential. So that's why I ranked them at 22.
Gotcha.
But let's talk about some key returners for the Nets. I mean, they got Brook Lopez coming back, Joe Johnson, Thaddeus Young, Jarrett Jack, Bogdanovich, Markel Brown. Who do you think needs to have a big season?
Well, I think Brook Lopez needs to stay healthy first and foremost. He's their anchor. At the end of last season, when they made their playoff push, he was the biggest reason why they made the playoffs, and they even pushed Atlanta to 6 games, I believe.
Correct.
It's because they just couldn't guard Brook Lopez. So he's definitely there. He needs to have a big season for them, and I think Jarrett Jack also now moving into the starting point guard role, like we mentioned off the podcast. He needs to have a big season for them, replacing Deron Williams.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brook too, because he's a big time. They need him to be a big time player. Even when the playoffs, when Atlanta was double teaming him, it was helping the rest of the team. And when he had the big games, he's just a big man in the paint. And when he plays well defensively and rebounds, he really helps the Nets. So he needs a big season. And you're right, Jarrett Jack needs to do a great job at starting point guard. He might not be as talented as Deron Williams, but he's definitely a better leader, something that Deron Williams really lacked.
It's crazy to think that the way Brook Lopez came on at the end of last season, that he was benched throughout the season, and he lost favor with Lionel Hollins, and Hollins ended up playing Mason Plumlee a lot of the time. Do you know specifically why Lionel Hollins and Brook Lopez didn't get along?
I mean, Brook didn't necessarily do what Lionel wanted at first. And Brook also didn't play as well in the beginning of the season. I think he was still testing that foot out, which is fine because, it's the second time he injured it. He didn't want to risk anything. But as the season went on, I think Brook adjusted to his foot, and he understood it more what Lionel Hollins wanted. He wanted Brook to spend more time in the paint and really not spend as much time with his mid-range game. And he told him that he needs to compete defensively and rebound if he wants to play. And Brook responded because at the last 2 months of the season, he played like one of the best centers in the NBA.
I think he is one of the best offensive centers in the NBA. I know a couple of years ago when Roy Hibbert was lighting up the Miami Heat just because he's taller than everyone, there was like a big thing between Dwight. It was either between Dwight Howard or Roy Hibbert as who was the best center in the game. And now, of course, DeMarcus Cousins has made himself known to the NBA world. But I still think Brook Lopez is one of the best centers in the league when he's healthy and plays in the post, like you said.
Yeah, when Brook competes on both ends of the floor, he's definitely one of the top centers. And offensively, he's probably one of the most gifted centers as well. He has a post game. He can roll to the basket. He has that weird little floater, and he's extending his range. There's even been rumors he might go to the three-point line this year. So,
about those rumors, how do you think Lionel Hollins feels about Brook Lopez shooting threes?
He's probably not too happy about it. But I guess you could convince Brook to be like, if you average 10 rebounds a game, I'll let you shoot a few threes.
Yeah, it's weird how Lopez isn't really a good rebounder, even at 7 feet tall.
Yeah, it's strange. One problem Brook has is he tends to box out his guy, and then he doesn't really attack for the rebound. He just lets someone else grab it. But he needs to just be a little bit more tenacious and attack the ball, because when he goes up to get it, he's most likely coming down with the ball just because of his size.
Right.
So Brook needs to be big in the paint. offense, defense, rebounding, everything.
How
Go
do you
ahead.
think Joe Johnson will do now that he's without Darren Williams in the backcourt? Do you think his role improves or his
Yeah,
role increases?
I think he gets a higher usage rate. And Joe at times show that he's a pretty good playmaker because he's even at his age, he still sees quite a few double teams in the post just because he's such a big guard.
Yeah.
And rumor has it that he was one of the happier players that Darren Williams was out of town. So hopefully he responds well. But let's get on to off-season moves. The Nets made quite a few moves. They really injected their roster with youth. What moves do you like?
I like the addition of Thomas Robinson. I feel like he can get some burn for them. He's been around the league in his short tenure as a professional basketball player, but I feel like his energy and ability to play defense, shot block, I feel like that could be valuable for the Nets as they look to play with more athleticism and probably a little bit faster pace. They were really slow last season. They were 24th in the league in pace, which I think has a little bit to do with trying to get Brook Lopez the ball in the post. But I do think the addition of athleticism will help increase that pace.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, they tried to change it up a little bit. The addition of Thaddeus Young definitely helped them pick up the pace. I think he's a good complement to Brook Lopez. But I like the Thomas Robinson signing too. Actually, when he was waived from Denver, the Nets thought that they were going to pick him up, but the Sixers went in real quick and grabbed him off waivers. He actually already tweeted out, like, thank you to Brooklyn and everything, and he was excited. So it's only fitting he landed with the Nets this offseason.
I also think Wayne Ellington is a good pickup. I think we discussed him during the Lakers podcast, but the man can flat out shoot the basketball.
Yeah, and this team needs three-point shooting. He's a professional too. He tries hard on defense. So I think the Nets were 26th in the league in three-point shooting last season. So they can definitely use him to light it up from the outside.
And they can go. They can play small ball with him at the 2, Joe Johnson at the 3, and Thad Young at the 4, and really allow Brook Lopez a lot of space in the paint.
Mm-hmm. That's what they need, especially because Jarrett Jack's three-point shot isn't that great. So they definitely need the shooting from other positions. I also just like the overall youth. I mean, they got Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Chris McCollum, Shane Larkin, Quincy Miller, Willie Reed. So they really added some young guys. So like you said, they can get up and down the floor more. It'll help them defensively. We all know that Lionel Hollins wants to have a defensive team. And if he can start to grind out games and get a nice little fast break, and he has Brook Lopez to work in the post too, that could really help the team. So
I really hope Willie Reed gets some time with the Nets. I know he'll be battling Andrea Bargnani for a backup spot, but after watching Willie Reed in the summer league with the Miami Heat, I really like what he brings to the table. He brings a lot of energy, brings solid size, is athletic, really can throw down anything in the paint and block shots. So I think he can get some burn. I feel like he's a Lionel Hollins type of player.
And he's worked hard to get here. I mean, he's bounced around the D-League. He actually had a few stints with the Nets D-League team. So it's nice to see Willie Reed finally get a shot in the NBA. And he is competing with Andre Bargnani. So, I mean, all he really has to do is play a little bit of defense, rebound, and make some layups because we don't know what's going to happen with Bargnani. All right, what moves do you not like from the Nets?
Well, just to add on to a move I did like losing Darren Williams. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I think most Net fans enjoyed that.
As far as moves I didn't like losing Allen Anderson. I feel like he's a J.R. Smith type of impact player in a good way off the bench. I know J.R. is probably a better scorer and definitely more dynamic, but Allen Anderson brings a lot more stability off the bench with that scoring punch. So I think he'll be a great addition to Washington, and I hate to see the Nets lose him. I also think losing Mason Plumlee. I know they got Rondae Hollis-Jefferson in return from Portland, but I think Mason Plumlee, just because Brook Lopez, his injury health has injury concerns. I think having him as a backup would have helped the Nets if they could have kept him. I know they have. Who's their backup center now? Is it going to be
either Willie Reed or Bargnani most likely?
Okay. So over those two, I'd rather have Mason Plumlee, but I think Rondae Hollis-Jefferson will be good. So I think it'll work out for them, but you kind of want to have that backup just in case Brook Lopez goes down.
Well, I think the Nets kind of knew at the time of the draft that they had, they're going to invest in Brook Lopez, and they wanted to try to get the most value for Plumlee as possible because he was going to see a smaller role. When Brook started to pick it up, Brook and Mace really can't play together just because Mace is so limited offensively.
Right.
So that really hurt him. And I mean, yeah, he did show potential. Maybe they could have traded him a little bit sooner, but Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's definitely a nice piece to have. He shows a lot of potential. He's already going to come in and be a great NBA defender, and he's an athlete, something they really need on the perimeter.
What do you think about Andrea Bargnani replacing Mirza Teletovic? I know Teletovic had that lung blood clot or something like that issue last season where he couldn't really play. But
yeah, the same thing as Chris Bosh.
Similar to Chris Bosh. How do you think Andrea Bargnani will fill that Mirza Teletovic role? Because I personally like Teletovic a lot more than Bargnani.
Yeah, Teletovic is definitely a better player. A lot of people just think of Teletovic as a three-point shooter, but he actually has added to his game more and more as he's been in the NBA. He's already was good at it when he played in Europe, but just adjusting to the NBA, he's actually been an okay defender, and he showed some aggressiveness willing to go inside. So, I mean, I'm definitely missed Teletovic. I think the Nets just didn't want to go over the cap. That's why they let him go. But Bargnani, I mean, he has talent, but he's never put it together on the floor. So he's a true wild card. You really have no idea. He's talked a lot of hype saying he's excited for Brooklyn and he's going to have a great season, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to add on, I'm going to miss Alan Anderson a lot just because he's a reliable player to have. And Washington's definitely going to have a nice piece off their bench now.
Right.
But let's move on. X factor for the Nets this season.
Well, they have a lot of turnover. So how all these new players fit with Lionel Hollins, his system, I think that's an X factor. And also Brook Lopez's health, of course, that's always an X factor for the Nets. He goes as they go, or they go as he goes, I should say. And Jarrett Jack, how he fills the role of starting point guard will be, I think, the ultimate X factor for this team. Deron Williams definitely underachieved, but he wasn't. I wouldn't say he was bad.
Yeah, he just didn't live up to the hype of the contract that he signed. He wasn't bad. He ran the offense. The Nets had a better plus minus with him on the floor. So Jack's going to have to prove that he can do that.
Has Jarrett Jack ever been a starting point guard? I know he's been a backup to Chris Paul. He was a backup to Steph Curry. He always plays well off the bench.
He started for New Orleans, I think, during the shortened season. And he started a few, just as a backup. He's had to start multiple times just to fill in.
I know I think he was he got a good amount of burn in Cleveland. I think Kyrie's always hurt, but when he was in Cleveland, he definitely got burned with the Cavs. So it'll be interesting to see how he moves from a backup role to now the full-fledged starter.
Yeah, and he had a tendency to kind of play iso ball a lot, and it worked sometimes when he was hot, but now he needs to really get his teammates involved, especially when he's playing with Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez and Thad Young. And Bojan Bogdanovic, I mean, I like that guy as an X factor coming to the season. At the end of last season, when the Nets needed to actually win games, Bogdanovic, I think, had his best month of the season. So he'll have a bigger role now that Deron Williams is gone. There'll be more balls to go around. So look for him to have another nice season for the Nets. So let's get into best case scenario.
Best case scenario, I would say, is the Nets make a playoff push. And I think most likely would be the 8th seed. I think that's their ceiling. They definitely have the pieces to do it. It just remains to be seen how the pieces will all fit together and if Brook Lopez can stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy, I definitely think this team is a playoff team in the East as the 8th seed.
Yeah, I think best case as well is Brook Lopez stays healthy. Some of these young players start to fit in. The guys with the chips on their shoulders prove that they can play in the NBA. The Nets land the 8th seed. And maybe they just take someone 6 or 7 games. Obviously, they're not going to advance, but it's better than losing their pick to the Boston Celtics. Worst case scenario for the Nets.
Worst case, I think, well, of course you don't want to be in the lottery this season because they owe their first round pick in 2016 to Boston. You can thank Paul Pierce and KG for that when you see around Brooklyn. Oh, wait, they're already gone? Okay. But they owe their 2016 first round pick, and I believe Boston has the right to swap in 2017, and then Brooklyn also owes their 2018 first round pick in Boston. So the draft won't be be kind to the Nets. So you definitely don't want to be in the lottery this season and the coming seasons. But there's also that level of mediocrity which the Nets are currently at right now, where they do make the 8th seed, but you're not really going anywhere as the 8th seed. You might get a first round upset of the number 1 seed if you're lucky, but then after that you're probably going to get bounced at home. So as a Brooklyn Nets fan, if I were a fan, I would kind of be iffy about them making the playoffs. So I don't see a lot of upside for this team, and there's definitely not that much upside in the future, just because they don't have their picks and they don't have a roster to where they can really get a top 4 seed in the East. So worst case scenario for this season is definitely not to make the playoffs, but I think going forward, making the playoffs as an 8th seed also ties into that worst case scenario, if that makes any sense.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, worst case, they lose the pick. Like you said, they get it to the Celtics. Maybe some guys get injured. The young players don't show up. But luckily for the future, the Nets actually, for once, will have cap space at the end of the season. So maybe they can make some nice improvements to the roster, especially with the cap going up. And there's some quality free agents. I mean, they'll probably try for Kevin Durant, but I don't see him signing there. One guy I think that they've been eyeing is Mike Conley, but it'll be tough to pry him from Memphis.
Right. That he really fits that grit and grind mantra that they have there. But Lionel Hollins is his former coach.
And they really like each other. So
right. So it'll be interesting to see if the Nets can snag him.
Yeah, that would be a big move, especially if Jack doesn't work out at point guard.
It was actually really smart this offseason to sign Brook Lopez and Thaddeus Young. So because their deals will look really, really friendly when the cap explodes.
Exactly. And they'll at least have some nice pieces. I mean, Brook's a good center. That's definitely a type of role player you can see on a good team. So, and maybe Bogdanovich, like I've mentioned before, if he can keep adding to his game, he was really a top player in the International League. So it'll be interesting to see how he keeps adapting to the NBA. But on to the truth. So today's emoji is a shoe. This signifies Brook Lopez's foot. The Nets have a lot invested in this. It's a big, big thing for the Nets.
And he's had a lot of foot problems, and 7-footers with foot problems are always alarming. So
Scary.
Hopefully he can stay healthy and be productive this season.
Yeah, I mean, they would like to see him. He missed pretty much 2 whole seasons from the foot injury. So if he can stay healthy and just, like I said before, he keeps the weight down, I think that helps keep the pressure off the foot. So hopefully Brook stays healthy and has a nice career with the Nets. But let's go on to League Pass. Are you going to watch the Nets this season?
Well, the Nets have one nationally televised game, and it'll be against the Knicks, Battle of the Boroughs. So I'll definitely watch that. As far as League Pass goes, I know they have one of the better broadcasting teams in Ian Eagle and Mike Fratello, the Czar. And so they alone are worth watching, even if the Nets suck. But I'll probably watch Brooklyn play teams like the Warriors or the Cavs or the Heat, teams like that, just to listen to the broadcast team. But as far as watching the Nets, I won't be watching the Nets. I'll be watching the other team that the Nets are playing while listening to Ian Eagle and Mike Fratello.
Yeah, the broadcast team is great. I mean, I've had to deal with some tough Nets seasons, and they've entertained me. But I'm a Nets fan. I'll be catching every Nets game regardless. So would you rather watch the Nets or the new Netflix original Narcos?
I've never even heard of Narcos until right now. So probably the Brooklyn Nets, but I may catch the pilot if you can explain it to me real quick.
I mean, it's pretty much about the cartel, Colombian cartel, Paul Escobar, and it gives you a lot of detail of what went on back then. Pretty interesting show. You definitely got to check it out.
Okay, yeah, then I'll definitely watch the pilot and see where it goes from there.
But we'll still take that as a win in Brooklyn. So
yeah, Nets, you have my vote for right now.
We have the vote for right now. But thank you guys for listening. And the hint for next team is we're going to form a wall.
Also, guys, if you like the intro and outro music, be sure to check out Ryan Clark VA at Twitter. He's got some great beats. Good guy. Check him out.